again. Alright, so this is my third little video reviewing albums. The last couple I did 2 records per, but this one I'm just gonna do 1. Yeah, so as we are working our way towards making a new album, I'll make sure to document that as we go along. Just while we're working on that, our most recent album is still available on our Bandcamp, which I'll put the little thing in the description below. It's a cool it's a cool gatefold LP. It's got a lyric insert, and it comes in 2 different colorways. There's a clear Coke bottle clear with purple swirl and a blue with black splatter. Yeah, so please get a chance, if you get a chance, check it out. If you're not sure and you're on the fence, go to Spotify and check it out and look it up and see if it sounds like your cup of tea. And if it is, then please pick up a copy. Yeah, so so today the bands that I've talked about so far are some of the more recent albums I've bought. Some of the bands that I mentioned had been around for a real long time. This band has been around a while, not like, you know, super long. I found out about them, I think, about 5 years ago or so, maybe a bit longer. And so I originally, when I saw where they were from, I was like, oh hell yeah, because I was born in Milwaukee, even though I bounced around a little bit. So my early little tiny kid years I spent in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's why I love my beer and my cheese. And my PBRs. And I pretty much grew up on the East Coast, though, like in Virginia, but I always have had an affinity for Wisconsin, especially Milwaukee. It's one of the coolest cities on earth. Real cool, kind of still, it still feels like a city, but it's a much smaller city than something like LA, near where I live, or, you know, on the East Coast, bigger cities like New York or something. It's like a quaint little city, and it's not too far from Chicago. And as I mentioned earlier too, the bands that we talked about were from Minnesota, and I feel like the Midwest, there's just like an affinity for the sort of horror thing that comes out of there, because I think of maybe it's the weather, maybe it's just because people tend to be more earnest and less concerned with ironic detachment that us we coastal folks tend to have. I see there's nothing irritates me more than like the sort of hipster irony out there. And that's one of the things that I do appreciate about the world of horror punk, is that it is completely sealed off against hipsterism. Hipsters will never be able to invade it, because in order to be part of the scene, or in order to take an interest in the scene, you have to be in some way earnestly interested in kind of some goofy stuff, you know, like monsters and horror and makeup and the sort of like theatric vibe of it all. You can't really do that ironically. You have to honestly, I mean, it's embarrassing to do as it is, right? So you have to really like have a strong belief in it and love of it, and it has to be genuine. Otherwise, you would never even bother. So, whereas, you know, the hipsters can go off and do their little shoegazy indie rock stuff, they'll never make their way into this genre. And while they can infiltrate broader genre of punk all they want, and it seems like they have, and taken it over, I think that horror punk itself is inured against the influx of any sort of hipsterism. And I think that people in the Midwest tend to be more straightforward, straight shooters, and honest and earnest about things. You know, everybody's different, I guess. But the general sort of cultural vibe, it's much more, I don't know, it's less, you know, in LA they stab you in the back, and New York they'll stab you in the front, but Midwest, it's like people say what they feel. Anyways, that notwithstanding, this band is called Ratbatspider. So their new album is Day of the Ratbatspider. I love this cover art. It reminds me a lot of Aaron Gaither, and I don't believe it is, but it has definitely like an early Aaron Gaither artwork kind of a vibe. Who I first discovered him from a 7-inch I bought of Municipal Waste, early 7-inch, like right when they had just barely, I think it was their first 7-inch, and the artwork is super great. And he also did stuff for after I was like, oh man, I love this style, and then he had done the album covers for like Agoraphobic Nosebleed and some other stuff. But I've always, once I discovered him, I looked him up and started looking at his art. But when I first saw this, I was like, oh, no way. Totally looks like Aaron Gaither. I hoped it was. It's not, but very similar, very cool. Excellent, cool illustrated cover art. And then the other thing that I mentioned, the thing that draws me to the horror punk thing is I love the aesthetic. I love this. I like seeing a band that is interesting. And the first band I ever liked in my life was Kiss. And before I even heard their music, I had a babysitter that had like a poster of Gene Simmons on the wall, and it was both terrifying and cool at the same time because it's kind of scary but kind of a superhero, and you don't know what to think, and he's got blood coming out of his mouth. That just like formed my brain. And then I saw Alice Cooper on The Muppet Show as a little lad too, and the same thing. It's like Alice Cooper looks like this kind of ghoulish vampire thing. I don't know what he is. He's just like scary, clearly, and even on The Muppet Show, he has this perfect blend of horror and comedy, and having been like a huge nerdy fan of Alice Cooper my whole life, I've seen billions of interviews, and his take on it and why he thinks that Alice Cooper as a concept has always been so successful is the horror and the gore is cut with a lot of comedy and humor. For him, it's like the theater of the Grand Guignol instead of just like, like an affront to your senses or malicious. And I think these guys embody the horror punk aesthetic better than any band I can think of. I just, as soon as you see Ryan Remains, I believe he's a singer, has the coolest, best makeup job of anybody. So part of a common theme that you see in horror punk is like a skull or zombie type makeup effect that people do, and obviously, like, I'll credit where it's due. The Misfits had originated that idea, both from the Glenn Danzig era, the famous photos of him at that Halloween night, wherever he played, where he's got his little like cowboy boot things on and like a skeleton costume and skull makeup. So he kind of originated the idea. Other bands, did makeup early on and stuff like that. And then obviously when the Misfits reformed with Mike Graves, it became even more elaborate and more like Kiss or more like Alice Cooper, where it was like a really like, and that was something that Mike Graves always did instead of just like a few instances like Glenn Danzig. But so you're gonna my makeup is a skull like motif. It used to be more like that, and it's kind of evolved into more, I guess, zombie-ish. Just because I got a big ass nose and it looks dumb if I try to cover it with black, end up looking like a puppy dog. But that's the theme. That's the theme in the scene, right? If you saw a guy walking down the street and he was wearing ostensibly, like some early '80s punk rock clothes and had a mohawk but had skull makeup on, you'd be like, oh, that guy's probably into horror punk. These guys, check it out, look awesome. So here you guys, this is a Ratbatspider out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I've only just talked about their look, and so their music is excellent too. It's very metal infused. They all came from like metal bands as well. So let's see, let me look up so without also showing you, I also meant to show this. This color is fantastic. It might not even come across that well in this room, but it is like a Dayglow green album. That is a cool color. I've always wanted to do an album color like that. You've got, let's see. So Doug is the drummer, and it's like definite, very metallic drumming, like lots of double bass and stuff, very fast. So they're verging into the, like, I wouldn't say they're hardcore, but definitely metal influenced. The vocals are what pull it back from being like just a full, like, hardcore band of shouted, barking vocals. It's got melody, but it's got aggression. So they're riding that line between melody and aggression that I really like. I guess my favorite songs on here are "We Are Vermin," "Day of the Ratbatspider," and yeah, those are probably my two favorite. They're all great though. It's a really good album. 12 songs. They're all hard-hitting, fast-paced. Guys from Wisconsin, check them out. I would love to. I was thinking about this too. Like when I started talking about other bands like us, these are the bands that I would like to play with. So I think it would be awesome if any of these bands watch the videos or happen to see them, we should trade shows, man. It would be cool. Like going out to Wisconsin would be freaking great. If we could create a sort of network of horror punk bands across the country that all are interested in touring and all want to trade shows, I think that if we got the word out and we found enough kindred spirits and stuff that were down to do it, we could easily create like a network and maybe do, so this will be unrelated to the Ratbatspider record, but just in general to all the other bands out there. So if there are other horror punk bands, or if you know of some, and they're interested in doing something like this, let me know. But I've been kicking around the idea, and I've talked with Craig from Uncommon Interests, who's worked with us on a couple of albums. He put out a 7-inch and an LP for us, and I was kicking around the idea with him. I was like, man, we should do like a compilation. He's done compilations before too, but I kind of wanted to like design my own with bands that are similar to us, that we could tour with. And if we put out a compilation LP that everybody gets a few copies of to sell, it could be a way to sort of network all the bands together in a cool, like, organic way. And if we could find a couple bands up the coast of California, a couple bands in the West, like in Arizona, Texas, some of the bands in the middle of the country, maybe, and then, the Midwest, the South, the East Coast has got a bunch. It'd be cool to like link up, and then we could create like a little sort of sub network. If one of you guys comes to town, I'll try to book a show, and then if we can come to town, it'd be cool to play with a local band that's like similar to us. So I don't know if you guys are into the idea. Let me know. I think it would be cool. It's like something I've been talking about for 100 years, and I'm sure all my bandmates get so tired of me saying it, but I think it would be great. I think it makes sense, and it would be an easy way to sort of kick off a tour, at least like to have like some friendly faces when you come to town, and you're not playing to just an empty bar. And also, I think it'd be cool to do an LP, just because this moment in time, it's like, I think there's a good rise of a lot of cool bands coming up that either bands that have been around a long time that are still making music, or bands that are brand new. There's just like, a bunch of good stuff out there. And so it'd be cool to link up with some of these different, either new bands or bands that have been around that we've never played with, that we've always, talked to or seen on the internet and wanted to play with. I think it'd be cool, man. I would love to play with Impaler. I'd love to play with Ratbatspider. I'd love to play with I guess Death SS probably is not going to come to America anytime soon. Maybe they will. I don't know. I'd like to play with there's like a ton of bands out there that I like and that I think it'd be fun to play with. So even if they're tangentially related, maybe different, like a psycho band or something, psychobilly band that is somewhat related to the scene, it would be cool to sort of bring it back. I mean, live music has been shut down for a year, so I think people are, I'm dying to get back and see some shows and play some shows. And I think horror punk, one of the things that it's always sort of missed out on is there really hasn't been a cohesive sort of networked scene. The biggest bands, that kind of came out of the scene or whatever that I can think of. You got like, Goolsby and Blitz Kid. They rose to a great deal of prominence, and I guess you got like they're kind of the biggie one on the block. I mean, there's a bunch of others too, but I can't think of anybody else right now. I guess the other, just because they were big, but they're from Germany, right? I need American bands, so we can play with American bands. Unless we can get to Germany, unless we can get to London, I would love to play frickin' England anytime. Yeah, I kind of rambled at the end there. But anyways, check these guys out. Very cool band, cool guys, and definitely worth a listen. And that is it. I will have another one of these soon. And yeah, please continue to let me know if there's any interesting bands with some new stuff out that I could check out, because I'm always on the hunt. And that is it. I'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.